So today we will be talking about fat, all about fat and all the questions that you ever wanted to ask about the fats. So George Bernard Shaw once said that no diet will remove all the fat from your body because the brain is entirely made of fat. Without a brain, you might look good, but all you can do is then run up for public office or become a politician. So if you don't want to do that, you need that fat for your brain to function well. So the question always people ask is, which cooking oil should we be using? And if you look at the newspapers, television, everywhere, you will get all kinds of things like the 5 best cooking oils right there. So let us look at that whether these claims that which are being made that these are the best cooking oils are they right or wrong. So there are different types of fat. For the different types of fat, you got saturated fat, you got unsaturated fat, you got monosaturated fat, you got polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and then you have the villain, which is the trans fat. So what do all these mean? So we will examine all of these in more details right now. So what are we looking at? So we are looking at flavor in the oil? Are we looking at a high smoke point? Saturated, unsaturated, and so on? Omega-3, omega-6. So quite a lot of variables we are looking for. So let us look at what is saturated fat. Now this is the molecule of the saturated fat where there is a carbon atom which is attached to different hydrogen molecules. Now the carbon atom needs 4 of its position to be filled. So 3 of the positions are filled with hydrogen, and the last position, which is marked with X, is either filled with a different molecule which gives it a different kind of properties. It could be anything at all. It could be even hexane, it could be a different kind of molecule. So this is a saturated fat. Then you can have multiple number of carbon atoms joined together, and this becomes a polysaturated fat. There are multiple carbon atoms which are joined together, and again at the end there is that different molecule. So all the binding sites of the carbon are now filled with hydrogen ions, and that is why it makes it pretty complete and very stable. So the saturated fat is usually very unstable. But then what happens when there is an unsaturated fat? In an unsaturated molecule, you have a double bond between 2 carbon atoms. So where you have like this. So you have a hydrogen here, and a double bond is joining it to carbon. So there is nothing here. Then similarly here there is nothing, and then this goes on like this. So this is unsaturated fat. So unsaturated fat can be monounsaturated, where you have just one double bond between 2 carbon atoms, and then it is like this. Or it can be polyunsaturated, where they have multiple carbon atoms which are joined by double bonds, and they can then make a molecule like this. Why is this important? So it is important because when you have a molecule which is entirely consisting of saturated chains, that chain becomes very tight and compact, and that chain will remain straight. And if it remains straight, then multiple chains can coexist together in a small space, because it is not looking for any other thing to bind with, and it is straight, it is very compact, and it is tight. But if you have a monounsaturated fat, there is this double bond here which makes it a bit flexible over here and the chain bends. Therefore, it takes up more space and it is not that stable. So saturated fat, once it becomes very compact, it can remain heavy, it can remain solid at room temperature. Whereas unsaturated fat is usually liquid at room temperature. Right? Then unsaturated can become 2 times polyunsaturated, or it can even become 3 times or more. So when you add 3 times polyunsaturated fat right here, you can get a pretty reactive or an unstable molecule. So polyunsaturated fats are unstable, they are more reactive, and they become denatured very fast. So let us now look at which are the 5 worst cooking oils you think you are healthy, but they are not. And you will be very surprised at these findings and these data. One of the worst cooking oil is flaxseed oil. Now flaxseed oil, as you can see on this table, is very high in polyunsaturated fats. Now don't get me wrong, you need these polyunsaturated fats. That is true. But what is the problem? When there is so much of polyunsaturated fats in flaxseed oil, the smoke point of flaxseed oil goes down to as little as 107 degrees Celsius. It's almost like the water. So even if it reaches boiling point of water, the flaxseed oil will denature. It will get degraded completely. This second figure is Fahrenheit. So 225 Fahrenheit. So that is why flaxseed oil cannot be used for cooking at all. What you can do, use it for adding as a salads, adding on dressing as salads, where you can put extra virgin flaxseed oil. But again, because it is extremely unstable, flaxseed oil needs to be stored in refrigerators. It cannot even be put into room temperature. The other worst cooking oils are soybean oil, canola oil, and sunflower oil. Now remember, all of these composition wise are good. The smoke point is good, but still they are pretty horrible for certain reasons, and we will go into those reasons immediately. What happens? See, what happens is they can have different smoke points also, but this having a high smoke point is not much good because of reasons like this. If you go and check out in a departmental store, you will see vegetable oil. And vegetable oil means what? Usually it is soybean oil, right? It has a pretty high smoke point. But the problem is, how do you prepare refined soybean oil? To make refined soybean oil, you have to put it under the soybean seeds into different kinds of processes. The first is solvent extraction. What is solvent extraction? Solvent extraction means that we use a petrochemical by the name of hexane. This is mixed with the soybean and it is an extremely poisonous compound, and this is mixed with the soybean seeds, and then this extracts all the oil in the form of a crude oil. Now that oil obviously is not edible. So then we have to desolventize it. That means that all that solvent needs to be removed, and to remove all that of solvent we have to heat the oil to extreme temperatures and expose it to steam, and even after that the industry will tell you that it is not edible. So remember, you had taken a soybean and then made it into a different kind of process, and that process makes it inedible. Do you really want to consume that kind of product? Then what they do is they take the soybean, that residue here, and then they put it through refining. In refining, we have multiple processes: degumming, neutralizing it, bleaching it, deodorizing it, winterizing it, and dewax it. So all these chemical processes are then done on that residual thing which was anyway inedible. And that leads us to the oil which is marketed to us as cooking oil, which has a mild flavor because they add that flavor to it. But it could have hexane residues. It does have a high smoke point. Why does it have a high smoke point? Because they have removed or they have modified all the things naturally present in the soya bean to a thing which is artificial, which is modified. Certain molecules have been removed to make it more stable. So all the good polyunsaturated fatty acids have been completely destroyed or completely modified, which are of no use to us. It is very high, all these vegetable oils are very high in omega-6 fatty acids. And omega-6 is, as you know, pro-inflammatory, and a large quantity if you consume omega-6, it does not do you any good at all. Further, because of all this processing and heating, the oil is rich in reactive oxygen species. What are these? These are radicals, oxygen radicals, which go and damage the oil, and they are there in the oil. And they lead to various disease processes in the body like insulin resistance, elevated blood glucose levels, and inflammation. So consider this. If you are probably suffering from diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease, or any kind of inflammation, arthritis, it is probably all because of the vegetable oils that you have been consuming all your life. Feels really, really bad, doesn't it? But these are the vegetable oils which are used in all the fast food industry and everywhere. Not only that, they reuse that oil, and that is even bad. So edible vegetable oils, in now studies they have done, are directly linked to cancer and brain degeneration like Alzheimer's disease. Because they found that vegetable oils, once you heat them on a pan, they produce aldehydes. There are a lot of aldehyde in the oil, and that aldehyde is carcinogenic. So not only all those diseases which I just told you, but even if you think about patients who have cancer, could it be linked to the vegetable oils they have been consuming? So it is really, really interesting. So all these things which they touted as the best cooking oils, so they will push all these oils to you, like til oil, they have sunflower oil, they have rice bran oil, and this is like, I think, sunflower oil or soya bean oil. All these are extremely harmful. And this light, extra light olive oil, again, I mean, you can't really do deep frying with it. So basically what I would say, that this is a totally wrong message which has been sent out into the society, which is tricking gullible consumers to consume all these substances which are nothing better than poison. Then we come to slightly better oils which are available. So one is avocado oil. Now this is ranked number 6 here because avocado oil is good. They don't have to refine it much. It is directly extracted from the avocado. It has a reasonable smoke point, but there are certain issues here. If you were to consume extra light or extra virgin avocado oil which has been cold pressed or which has been extracted and given as it is, then it is good for dressings, salads and other things. Still not good for cooking. But and it looks like green in color, that is fine. But if it looks pale in color, yellow in color or creamish in color, then it has been refined. And that refining process subjects this to the same process as they subjected the vegetable oils. And that is then creating a lot of issues with it, and we should not consume this. So if it has a mild flavor, which is a flavor which is not like avocados, then obviously it has been refined and that flavor has been added to it. So again, it is not good for cooking at all. So the point here is that the industry will tell you that if an oil has been made from avocados, it is good. If the oil has been made from healthy nuts, it is good, or whatever. Problem is this, that the origin where the food originates from does not matter. What matters is that what do they do to the food. That is very important. Suppose they take organic potatoes as such. It's not that bad. But if you make vodka out of the potato, it is absolutely unhealthy. Similarly, if they make potato chips out of the potato, it is still unhealthy. So important thing to understand is that what is the not only the origin of the food, but what did they do to the food. Secondly, we have to see not only the origin, but what happened at the origin. For animal products, what was the animal given during its lifetime? And therefore, for products like animal meat, products like eggs, product like milk, what was the animal given? If the animal has been given a lot of antibiotics, lot of pesticides, lot of GMO food, then the animal is nothing but a potential source of disaster. And you cannot consume that animal food. So not only the origin, but you have to look at the processing and you have to see what happened before they made it into a food. Now coming up the ladder, we have at number 5 lard and tallow, which is from obviously animal sources. So this is they are at least on the middle and they are fairly okay to consume in small quantities. Then we come to number 4, which is olive oil. Now olive oil is nice because again they do not subject it to refining most of the time. So extra virgin olive oil will still have the flavor of the olives, right? And it does not have any additive on it. It has a fair amount of monounsaturated fatty acids, which makes it in the middle, so it is fairly stable and you can heat it to some extent without too much of degradation. So that is slightly better, but again it should not be refined. Then we come to the next one, which is coconut oil. Coconut oil is high in saturated fat. That makes it very stable. And if you can take cold pressed coconut oil, it is basically totally unrefined and it is totally usable for eating as well as mild cooking. So then we come to the two more sources of fat which are more easier to use and healthier. So those two are number 2 at butter. Now butter is high in saturated fat, but the problem with butter is two. One is that it has a low smoke point. You can see here the smoke point is just about 150. That is because butter still has some protein residues from the milk that it was produced, and those protein residues can get denatured very fast when subject to heating. It gets brown, So that is why you can use butter, but you cannot use butter where you have to heat the food quite a bit. And secondly, because there is still that amount of milk protein inside the butter, that is basically not supposed to be healthy at all. And then we come to number 1, which is ghee. Now ghee is interesting because it is again saturated fat. All the protein residues have been completely removed. Therefore it has a reasonably high smoke point and it is supposed to be pretty healthy to eat. So ghee again reclaims the number 1 spot, but for practical purposes these number 1 to number 4 are all healthy in most aspects of adding to your food. But what about deep frying? So deep frying, let me tell you, is difficult because there is no oil which is produced currently which can help you in deep frying the food. No good oil. Secondly, when you deep fry, you subject the oil to repeated heating and cooling, and that is extremely bad. it increases the content of reactive oxygen species inside the oil, and that reactive oxygen is free radicals. It causes a lot of inflammation, lot of tissue damage, and all other problems. So as far as possible, keep away from deep frying foods and deep frying as a process in itself. Now what about groundnut oil? A lot of people in India use groundnut oils. Now refined groundnut oil is as bad as all the other vegetable oils because of all that processes which I told you, and it is also very high in omega-6 fatty acids, which makes it really inflammatory. It is also high in lectins. So lectins are substances which are harmful, which are produced by the plant to protect it from animals eating that plant. So that is why we keep away from groundnuts as well as groundnut oil. Even if it is cold pressed, even if it is kachi dhani and all that stuff, it is not safe to consume groundnut oil. In fact, there was this study which said that frequent consumption of peanuts by cancer patients may increase the risk of cancer spread. So we must be very careful about consuming these kind of foods. So ultimately, what is the bottom line? Saturated fats are good for you. They are stable. They are more satiating, and they create less of problems. They don't get denatured at medium high temperatures. So in a nutshell, on the left side, these are the good fats, and on the right side, these are the bad fats. So should not have anything on the right side. On the left side, you can have them in special circumstances. As I said, extra virgin olive oil only for salad dressings and adding to food. And for cooking, you can use butter, coconut oil, ghee, and so on. Now what about omega-3 and omega-6? That is another point of contention when choosing a type of fat to consume. If you look at the Paleolithic history, 4 million years ago, there was the precursors of man, and these had a omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 1:1. But as development occurred, evolution occurred, the diet started to begin to change. We went from 1.1 to in 1900 to 10.1 as omega-6, and currently we have 20:1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. This is absolutely unhealthy. Omega-6 fatty acids are extremely pro-inflammatory, and they have been linked to a number of diseases. So you need the good ones, you need the essential fatty acids, which are the omega-3. But how do you get them? You do not get them through oil. Okay? Don't go after flaxseed oil, that oil, or this oil. No, consume them in their natural form as they happen in nature, in the form of seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, avocados, nuts, healthy nuts, and those of you who can eat fish. So those are the sources for omega-3, and that is what needs to be done. So to conclude this presentation, we will tell you that 60% of the brain is made of fat. Brain needs healthy fats for constant growth. Omega-3 fats are important. Cholesterol is important for the brain growth. And you get the omega-3 fats from flax seeds, raw nuts, walnuts, and so on. Monounsaturated fats you get from avocados and olive oil. Saturated fats, all the healthy ones, you get from coconut oil and ghee. Avoid completely oxidized cholesterol. Oxidized cholesterol is the one thing which is really bad. It leads to increased atherosclerosis, leads to increased heart disease, leads to increased blood pressure. From sunflower, soybean, groundnut, all of these have oxidized cholesterol and should be avoided like anything. They have a high levels of omega-6, which are all inflammatory. So that is the presentation for today, I think you would find all this information very useful. Go through it and we'll meet in the next class today. Thank you. Bye-bye.